Hello, and welcome to Every Learner Everywhere's ADAPT 2021. I am Dr. Rwanda Garth McCullough, the Director of Program Development at Achieving the Dream.
I'm Dr. Megan Tassine, Director of the Personalized Learning Consortium at the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities.
Thank you all for joining us today for an engaging, student-centered digital learning showcase that we are honored to co-host. We are so pleased that you are here today to enjoy this action-packed agenda that illustrates what is possible with strong networks, partnerships, and communities of educators working together to design and implement intentional digital learning opportunities for students. We welcome each of you to our growing Every Learner Everywhere community, and please take a second and introduce yourself and share your position and institution in the chat.
I want to give you a little background context on what this initiative was and what we'll be highlighting today in this event. So in 2018, both ATD and APLU connected with 13 colleges and universities in the states of Texas, Ohio, and Florida to participate in a new grant-funded initiative. And this initiative focused on improving student learning and student outcomes by adopting adaptive learning courseware into target gateway courses and redesigning those courses in ways that integrate and align with the courseware so as to better serve students and to provide them with a more personalized learning experience. Now, in partnering with ATD and APLU and Every Learner Everywhere in this initiative, these colleges and universities had an opportunity to learn innovative and evidence-based teaching practices that prioritize the lived experiences of students as well as their learning needs. They were able to work within cross-functional campus teams, and in doing so, support the development of institutional capacities to start, sustain, and scale best practices at their colleges, and to collaborate and network with academic leadership, faculty, and support staff of a diverse set of institutions, sharing and learning from each other. This work began before the global pandemic crisis and continued through it, and that certainly had its challenges, and we've learned a lot from that as well as the initiative and from each other throughout this entire process. So for instance, we did see that when COVID-19 hit in early 2020, the colleges and universities had to rapidly transition to remote learning. We found that faculty participating in this project, in this initiative, seemed to indicate that the transition was more smooth than their peers. They'd already gone through an extensive course redesign process and were familiar with the elements of teaching with adaptive and online learning tools. They were already actively communicating with their colleagues and departments on effective teaching strategies. And they were also already considering ways to prioritize student-centered pedagogies and interventions in their courses. And many folks found this to be incredibly critical during the global pandemic crisis and how that affected the classroom, both in person and face-to-face. Things that we'll still be seeing effects of for quite some time. Through this initiative, we've learned quite a bit. We've learned that while digital learning technologies such as adaptive learning coursework can enhance the teaching and learning experience of students and faculty alike, if that adoption and integration of those technologies is not done well and not paired with quality instructional practices and design choices, it doesn't work well. Ultimately, the implementation and teaching strategies matter. We've also learned that in order to support this work in the classroom, a community and campus-based approach is critical. Faculty must receive the resources, supports, training, and time necessary to start and sustain this work. Leaders in teaching and learning centers, IT, institutional research, student success, and accessibility offices must be involved. Deans, department chairs, provosts, presidents must also be involved, informed, and aligned, and provide support and communicate that support to the folks that are participating throughout the institution. Further, student voices must be consulted and elevated in the design choices that university leaders and faculty are making on their behalf. So the purpose of today's event is to share the lessons that we've learned and share some of these lessons that I've highlighted from the people who actually took on this work in their courses and on their campuses as a part of this initiative. We'll be hearing from academic leadership, faculty and faculty support staff, educational researchers, and students who are also enrolled in courses using adaptive learning technologies. We're going to learn about their challenges, successes, lessons, and strategies that they've identified as being critical to both taking on this work and making it successful on their campuses. We hope in that sharing these experiences and lessons, you can take something from this into your own classroom and into your own campus. We've developed a robust series of programming for you today, and we hope you enjoy it. We're going to start off with an introduction from Dr. Jessica Rowland Williams. She's the director of Every Learner Everywhere. Next, Dr. Sharon Leu, the Executive in Residence at Jobs for the Future, will kick us off with our keynote address. And then we have 3 concurrent blocks of expert-led panels and presentations. These are going to cover topics such as how to get started, how to support faculty and students, and how to sustain and scale adaptive learning initiatives on your campus. Also, we'll learn about how faculty are using course and student level data in the classroom and on their campuses as well. How are faculty and instructional designers creating educational experiences that center student voices and prioritize inclusive teaching practices? Further, how are students experiencing these technologies and redesigned courses, and what lessons can we learn from them? And then also, what can we learn from faculty and educational researchers on making incremental changes in our classes and academic programs through a continuous improvement process? Finally, we'll close with a plenary from Dr. Van Davis, Every Learner Everywhere's Service Design and Strategy Officer. Then we'll hear key lessons from today's sessions, how it's informing our work moving forward, and how you can use these lessons to take action and where you can learn more.
Thank you, Megan. And the most important housekeeping rule of today's virtual event is to engage as much as possible. The platform includes a few design features to promote collaboration. After you locate the Zoom link for the sessions, you'll be able to that you'd like to attend for each block through the agenda tab. We encourage you to use the chat feature to introduce yourself and share insights and questions throughout the sessions today. The interactive area is a Miro board where you can post, read, or respond to each other's questions, session highlights, and share promising digital learning practices. The sessions will be recorded and posted, so you don't have to worry about FOMO. You should have no fear of missing out. We've included a student showcase and a resource area with links to videos, guidebooks, case studies, digital learning resources that feature student voice, many of which we will refer to throughout the day. As if we were all on a campus together, don't I wish, this virtual platform also includes a live help desk technician throughout the event who will be able to troubleshoot any technical issues you have. So in order, just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge all of the people that made today possible. And we'll start those acknowledgements with the colleges and universities that we worked with. This faculty-focused transformative work that we are featuring today would not be possible without the 13 college and university teams that accepted our invitation in 2018 to take a deep look into teaching and learning practices and identify opportunities to leverage digital learning to innovate with the common goal of improving student success outcomes in gateway courses. We refer to these 13 institutions that piloted the adaptive courseware integration as lighthouse institutions, as you have all indeed provided illumination that has helped us navigate our implementation, integration of this digital courseware into gateway courses in very meaningful ways. We sincerely appreciate the time, investment, and persistence that each of the team members expended for the Every Learner Everywhere initiative, and are grateful to you for sharing your expertise to inform our collaborative work and effort to transform post-secondary teaching and learning. We are honored that many of the inspiring team members are here today speaking on the various panels, and know that by the end of the event, each participant will also benefit, as our organizations have, from the insights and experiences of this amazing group of dedicated educators. We are especially grateful for our student panelists who have been instrumental in ensuring that our development of resources, tools, and services center student experiences with digital learning. We would like to thank each student for offering their honest feedback on what we are getting right and what still needs work. Your voice and input is critical to ensuring that we are creating active and adaptive learning experiences that fit your needs and support your academic and professional goals. In addition to the student panel, the student showcase features 2 video compilations developed by Free Alexander Media that illustrate how students interacted with adaptive courseware in ways that deepen their learning. We are also delighted to be working with Tea Leaf Touring and Consulting, who has been the mastermind behind our virtual platform that we are using today. They are a division of Mohawk Community College and ATD Network College, have to give that shout out, who created Tea Leaf as a social and commercial venture where 100% of all profits are returned in kind to support the needs of students in the college through scholarships, equipment, and unrestricted funds. We would also like to thank Onyx Productions, who are working behind the scenes on all technology matters to make us look good and offer you a seamless virtual event. And last but not least, we would like to thank the members of the event planning team from our respective organizations. We are grateful for the collaborative team effort from Every Learner Everywhere, Achieving the Dream, and the Association of Public Land Grant Universities for designing this wonderful event.
Thanks, Rhonda. Next, we'd like to hand it over to Dr. Jessica Rowland Williams, again, who is the director of Every Learner Everywhere. Now, Every Learner Everywhere is a network of 12 partner organizations, including both ATD and APLU. And we have a mission to help institutions use technology to innovate teaching and learning to better serve Black, Latinx, Indigenous students, poverty-affected students, and first-generation students. As the director of ELE, Jessica provides the leadership and vision for the network and leads the operation of the network strategy. Jessica earned her bachelor's degree in biology from Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. And she also earned her master's and PhD in molecular biology from Princeton University. Through both her personal and educational experiences, Jessica developed a passion for improving student outcomes among underserved, minority, and low-income students. She's devoted her career to expanding access, increasing graduation rates, and promoting student success among students of all socioeconomic backgrounds. Thank you for joining us today, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tassine. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all today, and it's just such an exciting event to be a part of. As Megan said, I am the director of Every Learner Everywhere, and Every Learner Everywhere is just an incredible organization that supports faculty and institutions as they consider how they improve service to, as Megan said, Black, Latinx, Indigenous, poverty-affected, and first-generation students through the implementation of digital learning. And we are a network of partners. We have 12 partner organizations, and each of our partner organizations represents leaders and innovators in teaching and learning. And we work collaboratively by providing the fields with tools and resources and services that support the implementation of equity-focused digital learning strategies. The partners within our network work collaboratively to help colleges and universities pursue solutions that are equity-focused, student-centered, faculty-powered, and institution-driven, and promote improvement in teaching and learning. Our work began in 2017, and when we started with a focus on adaptive courseware. And as you already heard from Dr. Megan Tassine, one of our first major projects, which happened in partnership with ATD and APLU, was to support 13 institutions in the redesign of introductory courses using adaptive courseware. And today you'll get to hear from several of those institutions, including Cuyahoga Community College, Houston Community College, Lorain Community College, Indian River Community College, University of Central Florida, Miami-Dade College, Broward College, Florida International University, and Texas Rio Grande Valley. As you know, as we all know, over the last year and a half, we've seen tremendous strides in how institutions are prioritizing digital learning transformation at the same time that they grapple with how to address systemic racism and other inequities that have been laid bare by the pandemic. And many instructors are reporting an increased positive perception of digital learning and more frequent and embedded uses of digital resources, especially in introductory classes, along with an increased exposure to the lived experiences of many of their students. But we also know that there are real challenges that have come along with these drastic changes and shifts to remote learning and increases in digital learning use. Some of those concerns are that instructors have voiced growing fears and concerns about equity and moral issues related to the use of digital tools. We're hearing more and more every day that there's just this dire need for improved faculty development around these issues. We're also hearing concerns about access to technology for both students and instructors. And of course, if you're in this field or you've been in there this field for even a short amount of time, you've heard concerns around loss of student engagement in digital spaces. We know that research shows that student performance, particularly student performance in gateway courses, is a direct predictor of retention and student success. And we also know that Black, Latinx, Indigenous, and other minoritized student groups have higher DFWI rates in gateway courses, thus earning fewer course credit hours and increasing the likelihood of them leaving college without a degree. Our network believes that if we can improve the learning experiences provided in these gateway courses through the implementation of digital learning, then we can also improve success rates for these minoritized students. When faculty and institutions have the right tools and knowledge to implement digital learning effectively, the result is an improved learning experience for all students, and that's even in the midst of a pandemic. We also believe within our network that digital coursework can be a catalyst for improving course outcomes for marginalized students because it enables faculty to adapt instructions to students' needs and capabilities, promotes active and collaborative learning, and also provides learners with actionable, timely feedback. Of course, it's important to also note that we also believe that technology alone is unlikely to bring about the improved outcomes that we seek, and that courses also need to incorporate evidence-based teaching practices that address the effective and interpersonal and situational challenges that Black and Latinx and Indigenous and poverty-affected and other minoritized student groups experience. The good news is that we have a unique opportunity to shift during this time period, to shift from a teaching and learning model that has, largely been characterized as kind of being factory model, right? One size fits all. And a model that's been race neutral and objective, and also has been focused on assimilating students into a white-centered academic culture. And also a culture that has been student blaming and places the blame on students for the issues and disparities that we see in learning outcomes. We have the opportunity to shift from that type of a model to one where we can individualize and differentiate learning within a classroom. We can provide students with culturally relevant pedagogy, and we can reshape systems and practices to recognize and develop the brilliance of our diverse students. What we're talking about here is digital learning transformation, and that's what our network wants to do. My vision for the future of this work is that we can collectively dismantle systemic racism and inequity in higher education by building capacity in colleges and universities to remove the structural barriers in classrooms through digital tools. Through our network's assistance, technical assistance, research, publications, we take a systems approach to centering equity and racial justice. And we believe that advancing equity work is the responsibility of an entire campus community, and not just individual instructors making choices about their own teaching. I am so delighted that you chose to join with us today. I'm so delighted that you decided to learn more about our network and our work and to join with us on this journey. We hope that you will go to our website, browse our resources, sign up for our newsletter, follow us on Twitter at EveryLearnerNet to get the latest information about the free resources and tools and services that we offer. And don't forget to tell a friend or a colleague about the work that we're doing. Again, I just want to thank you for joining us today, and I hope that you continue to stay engaged with us. Thank you. Back over to you, Rowanda and Megan.
Thank you, Jessica, for that informative introduction and framing. I continue to be honored to be a part of Every Learner Everywhere Network. Now it brings me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Sharon Leu. Sharon is the executive in residence at Jobs for the Future, a national nonprofit that drives change in the American workforce and education systems to achieve economic advancement for all. She builds infrastructure for a skills-based talent marketplace, promoting credentials, interoperability standards, and empowering individuals to use their data to access opportunity. She has been focused on designing innovative programs that promote the effective use of technology in education. Prior to joining JFF, Sharon served as the Senior Policy Advisor for Higher Education at the U.S. Department of Education, leading post-secondary education innovation initiatives at their Office of Educational Technology. While at the Department of Ed, Sharon directed initiatives to increase access, decrease cost, and improve outcomes for post-secondary learners. Sharon also oversaw the design and implementation of the U.S. Department of Labor's $2 billion Trade Adjustment Assistance Community College and Career Training Grant Program, the largest federal investment in post-secondary innovation. Sharon work helps us reimagine new ways to reach and serve students who have faced structural barriers to social and economic mobility. This includes exploring the critical role of technology to increase access to educational opportunity for post-secondary learners. The focus of her work can help us to solve defining challenges of our time, promoting equitable teaching and learning in higher education. Please join me in welcoming Sharon Leu to Adapt.
So before I dive in, I wanted to take a minute first to thank the Every Learner Everywhere team that organized today's event and thank for inviting me to participate. I am a longtime cheerleader of the Every Learner Everywhere network, of the work that Achieve the Dream and APLU and many of the institutions that are part of this great community have been doing. The work that you have been doing every day for years and years before this network and before this pandemic can sometimes feel unnoticed and underappreciated, but your work as faculty and instructors and mentors and counselors has supported families and strengthened communities and has given opportunities to countless students. So thank you all for your great work. I hope all of you enjoy this event and take these couple of hours today as an opportunity to appreciate the progress that we have all made together and to prepare ourselves for even more work ahead. Since this is a virtual convening, please feel free to check your email or eat your lunch because I would do the same thing and my feelings are not hurt. But at the same time, we do want you to be engaged with us in this conversation together. And so if at any time you have any comments or questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box. We will address them either throughout or probably at the end where we will have dedicated Q&A time. So today, I want to spend some time having a conversation with you today about how to build off of the work that we have done, our successes in improving teaching and learning, so that we can continue to provide every one of the learners that we interact with every possible opportunity for the future. So I've said that this is going to be an interactive session, so let's practice how to be interactive. On the slide, you will see a link to our Mentimeter, and this is, you'll find the QR code as well as a way to put the code into your mobile device, or I think a direct link into the chat. And so let's take a minute to do a virtual icebreaker and share one new skill, the fun kind, that you have learned over the last couple of years during the pandemic. And let me see if I can share the screen. All right, so let me also do this. And if you go ahead and do that, then we can put the results on the screen, I think. Great. I also baked a lot of bread and gained some weight from that. And I will share that even though this is not a new skill, one of my ongoing hobbies has been dehydrating my own backpacking meals. So I definitely doubled down on that in a sort of apocalypse planning kind of way. And so have definitely, I think over the last couple of years, increased my backcountry chefing skills. So definitely contact me if that is something that you are interested in as well. So I'm really glad that this has worked out. So now we kind of know how we are going to interact, and I will switch back to PowerPoint. Okay, so let me just quickly tell you a little bit more about JFF. Jobs for the Future, JFF for short. We are a national not-for-profit organization with offices principally in Boston, in DC, and in Oakland, California, but these days in also everyone's living room. We do envision a society in which economic advancement is attainable for all. And our mission and programs work towards building this future by transforming the workforce and education system. Our JFF Student Success Center institutions have had the privilege of partnering with ELE as a solutions network intermediary these last few years, and we look forward to continued collaboration with all of you. And I would say too, it's a personal pleasure for me to be here. I think Rwanda mentioned it before, but I have a long history with community colleges, and in fact, that is where my education in education and education policy began. So before JFF and the Department of Education, I was at the Department of Labor. And one day, this Trade Adjustment Assistance Community College Career Training Grant Program happened. So if anyone remembers, the worst acronym in all of government for the largest and most complicated program to administer. I should have, I guess, maybe given a trigger warning, but I very fondly remember my experiences, and I have learned a tremendous amount. It was actually during that time that I started to learn about how complicated it is to support working learners, dislocated workers, training for unemployed and underemployed. In other words, to support the real life students that you encounter in your classrooms every day. And if you worked with me during those days, thank you for your patience with me. Let's definitely catch up since TACT is coming back, but more on that later. Even working at the Department of Education and having the resources of the department, we say that for all the hopes and dreams we pin on the newest technologies, the most important factor that contributed to the success of those students was not the shininess or the newness of the technology itself, but the systematic and collaborative implementation of that technology. And the implementation thoughtfully in a way that helped focus our systems around the success and needs of the students. And I, in reading through the case studies that have been published on the ELE website these last few days, it seems like you have actually been very successful at implementing the technology in a lot of ways. You all have reported increased pass rates, better grades for students, more students completing homework and engaging better in the classroom, and of course, cost savings. So my goal here isn't to, I want to think about this in addition to the success of your students, whether or not you implemented an adaptive technology or were part of the Every Learner Everywhere network, you most certainly implemented technology as part of your job and in teaching your courses as a result of our rapid transition to digital. So what is one skill that you have learned as a result of teaching online? And there's no poll for this. This is just a think to yourself. What would you say is the one skill that you have learned? And let me ask you a question. So definitely type into the chat. What have you told anyone about your new skill? And let me just look. Okay. So if your answer is no, I think you're in luck, because the entire purpose of this event, well, it is to specifically showcase and discuss the promising practices and lessons learned from this cohort of Every Learner Everywhere network institutions. It is also, I think, there is also plenty of room built in to just share globally across all of you who are participating in this call. And as professionals in education, I think convenings like this are pretty frequent, and we have lots of opportunities to share our accomplishments. For example, within the Every Learner Everywhere network, there are a number of convenings where promising, like today, where promising practices and latest research are shared. There are a number of resources, case studies that provide a more detailed examination of the work that was done, and maybe provide a roadmap or tips for other faculty members interested in implementing adaptive technologies. And most importantly, there's opportunities to build communities and networks around teaching and learning and improving the success of our students. So in this context, I think that as professionals in education, as providers of education, as administrators that lead this work, I think that we have a lot of appreciation for the opportunity to showcase accomplishments. So in this context, I want to pivot us away from thinking about our own accomplishments and our own lessons learned, and think about that from the perspective of student success. And what I want to say is student success is better than an A+. And please don't tell my mom that I'm saying that A's don't matter. That is a very long and sad thing that I guess we will talk about later. But success for students does not end with the semester or with graduation. And we all know that the metrics that we typically measure, right, that we're required to collect, that we're required to report, are insufficient in describing the complete picture of a student's success. So what can we do to improve that? So let's go to another poll, and this is again on Mentimeter. There's a different link in the chat, as well as a new QR code on the screen. And so if you were to ask your students which new skills or achievements that they are the most proud as a result of your course, what do you think that they would say? And what I'll do is I will share the results. And let's see if we can have a little bit. Okay, excuse me for, okay. So I think Zoom, okay, definitely Zoom is something that I have learned a lot as well. I would be very curious about how dog training was a skill that was a result of your course, but perhaps that is for the Q&A later as well. Okay, so let us. Okay, hold a second. So let me ask you a second follow-up question, Ed. How are your students showcasing their achievements? And I have opened a new board, hopefully successfully, that will be able for us to be able to see the results. So let's think about how would your students share the results? Speak. Sorry, experiencing technical difficulties. So I am going to say again that I don't think that getting an A is bad. A's are very good. And especially if you have been historically intimidated by any subject and you get an A, that's actually even better. And to, I think, Jessica's point earlier, a lot of these gateway courses are often, you know, the ones that hold back a lot of students from proceeding with their degrees. So an A is great. But I want to take an example from one of the case studies that I read about the peer tutoring program at Indian River State College. So a student is, like as an example, a student who is enrolled in algebra in Indian River State College can become a peer tutor if they have earned an A or a B in the course, and if they are proficient with the use of the new software. Now, one of your students that you've just hired, she did get an A, and you know she understands the software, and you hire her as a peer tutor. So for the next semester or two, she helps other students also get A's in algebra. And she does this not only by providing tech support on your software, but by providing content support and tutoring on the subject matter itself. So is the A on her transcript enough to describe her skills and achievements? And what happens if she doesn't complete her degree and nobody sees that A on her transcript in the next 2 or 4 or 6 years before she graduates? How do we help her to describe her skills and achievements? And the reason I bring this up is because there was recently a study published, and I know that a lot of people have probably read it, by the Harvard Business School and Accenture, that talks about more than 27 million hidden workers in the United States. The term hidden doesn't describe a person's posture, like crouching under a desk. It describes individuals with certain characteristics that cause companies' policies, practices, or technologies to screen them out of the application process. And as a result, these individuals and their skills and talents are hidden from recruiters so that they do not have opportunities for full-time employment. Now, typically, these individuals these are individuals who are not working full-time, even if they have a stable part-time job. They have long gaps in their employment history, or they're maybe discouraged or don't know what opportunity to seek, so they've stopped looking. And they include a wide range of individuals, but notably caregivers, veterans, immigrants, people from less advantaged low-income households, and people without traditional qualifications like a college degree. So in other words, these are your actual students. And again, I pulled out some bullets from the case studies, but some of the students that have used your software are moms who have stopped working in school so that they can support their family and raise their children. People who are now pursuing a 4-year degree after a very long gap after their second degree. New immigrants that are maybe struggling with language issues, and students who are learning online for the very first time. And let me add one more layer of complexity. For many of your students, and these are the hidden workers included, economic mobility is completely out of reach. 71 million Americans have not completed education beyond high school diploma, and less than 14% of low wealth students who attended college actually completed their studies and graduated. So even if one of your students did all of the homework exercises, completed your courses, and got an A, if they were from a low-income family, most likely, statistically, they will not complete their degree. And I will nuance that, it's because of how we collect the data, but it is actually probably more accurate to say they will not complete their degree within the 4, 6, or 8-year range that the data is collected in. And we see that the trends are worsening across generations and especially acute for families that are already in poverty. So this is a little bit bleak, but essentially, what is the point here? The point is that that we should do something about it. So what are we going to do? So when the researchers that put together this report polled some of these hidden workers, one of the questions that they asked was, what were these individuals going to do to find employment? And I think that the top 3 items are pretty interesting. They developed digital skills. They did an assessment of their transferable skills, and they developed soft skills. And if you look at the 5th one underneath, they undertook work experiences, internships, or work shadowing so that they could gain some experience. And the researchers also asked them if they knew how to become more employable. And if you look at the difference between individuals pursuing high and middle skills, you'll notice that for those individuals pursuing middle skill jobs, almost half of them don't even know what skills they need. And actually more than half of them don't know how to access the resources to get those skills, to share using social media about their skills, and to even access what training opportunities and employment options they need. So this is the opportunity that we have right now. You as educators and faculty members, experts in teaching and learning, can also do the next thing, which is to unhide your students by helping them to showcase their achievements. The entire concept of hidden workers is that, we screen out people because we think that they are missing or deficient in some important characteristics. So we say that a person is not qualified for a job because they don't have a degree, or they don't have experience, or don't have certain characteristics. But actually, what we should do is shift the conversation to focusing on the things that they don't have yet, but that they have now. So they have skills now, they have experience now. And this is the opportunity to help students themselves, to empower them by helping them to think about their abilities right now and to begin to showcase them in a way to lead so that they can communicate this on the job market. So remember our peer tutor. She was a student that received an A or B in the course. She had the recommendation of a faculty member, and she had demonstrated proficiency with the course software. That was when she completed her course, and I think her limited engagement with a faculty member. But then as she became a tutor in the subject matter expert area, she provided technical support and then demonstrated and learned soft skills. She gained work experience and she started to build her professional experience. So now, how do we then help her to capture all of these things together so that she can communicate not only that she got an A or that she had a job, but that she is well skilled and able to participate in the workforce? I will give you one example, which is to issue a digital badge. It's actually not my goal here to list off a million examples of the different ways that people can improve their communication. But I'm a little interested because digital credentialing and badging is something that I'm very interested in. But essentially, a digital badge is an image file that contains a lot of metadata about the credential, verifiable information about the achievement that the student has obtained, including what criteria they met in order to earn it, when did they earn it, maybe even some evidence of their skills. And let me give you some examples of how faculty members can start to do this with their students. So here's an example from the University of California. And in graduate courses, faculty members can issue badges to their students for having skills in how to present research in public. And it includes 3 sub-skills of presenting to live audiences, communicating about their research, communicating the value of their research. And those can be verified so that when a student goes on the job market, they can say, yes, actually, I have public speaking and communication skills. Similarly, the California Community College system issues 21st century skills badges to their students so that they can say when they're on the job market, yes, I am resilient. I am capable of analysis and a solutions mindset. I am a collaborator. I have empathy and self-awareness. And again, all of these as digital badges have information about how they were achieved, how they were earned, and what is underneath all of them. And even more, I think this is just because I was highly amused by this, faculty members can also issue a course completion badge. So if you are in the UC Davis Continuing Professional Education School and you take a course on beer quality and flavor, you can achieve a badge if you have met the 2 criteria for earning this badge. Now, I think that I'm highly amused by this, but if you look at the statistics, actually in the United States, one of the top 10 fastest growing industries is in alcohol production, so in breweries, distilleries, and wineries. So I think the pandemic has really turned us all into a nation of alcoholics. But putting that aside, what is the value of collecting individual badges? Like, are we Boy and Girl Scouts again? And the answer is, actually, it's not about one badge, and in the same way, it's not about one A. It's about the complete picture of who a student is and what they can do. So imagine their high school diploma, artifacts from their first job, their skills, credentials that they earn at your college, maybe a second job, maybe skills that they earned online, in addition to military service, awards for sport events, or other of their talents, maybe some medical history. If we can put that all together and package them in a way that a student can hold them and take them with them all of the time, then they have the best chance that they have to put their best self forward for any opportunity that they want. And that's actually what we call the learning and employment record. I will not get into the details of this, but essentially an LER is a digital record of learning and work that can be linked to an individual and combined with other digital records for use in pursuing educational and employment opportunities. And essentially what we're saying is, in one semester, you will engage a student to take your course, but your courses are gateway courses. And there are many other things that they will learn along the way in their lifelong learning journey. And let's help them collect them together. And I'm actually not suggesting that you as faculty members create infrastructure and systems for LERs and help them find jobs. What I'm saying is that even though you are part of the start line, the developmental education courses, the gateway courses, having the end in mind, which is a student that can pursue any opportunity they want over their lifetime, is something to keep in mind. So how do we actually ensure this? And again, I'm not saying that focusing on completion of a course or focusing on getting a job, either of them are the end. But the point is to understand that learners have multiple paths, as you know, and that the opportunities that they may want to pursue differ along at any of those points in times. So how do we ensure that regardless of where they are in their journey, that they can access any opportunity that they want? And I will bring us back then away from the technology of digital badging and LER infrastructures and digital like anything, and bring us back to the fundamentals, which is that when students earn skills, they should be able to communicate them. And we should figure out how to carve out opportunities for them to showcase their achievements. And I guess it is one additional thing that you will have to do. And it seems like a lot. But I guess if as Jessica said earlier, if we are dismantling systemic racism and fundamentally changing our systems of education and workforce, then why not? This is one simple step that we can all do. And I think that we will have many opportunities to collaborate together in the future. I think that Van and others are much more knowledgeable about this than I, but in the future, there will be in the infrastructure and Builds Back Better, a lot of opportunities to either bring back TAC-like programs or to think about how to better serve individuals that are dislocated workers, that need apprenticeships, that are opportunity youth. And the key characteristic that ties all of them together is that they all focus not only on the start line, which is how to get a person into a program, but also the finish line, which is how to get them the economic outcome that they would like. So thank you for your time. I think we definitely have a lot of time for questions because I spoke very quickly. And so I will defer to our moderators for how to proceed next.
Thank you so much, Sharon. We have one question to start us off, and it is student success is often framed in terms of supporting students to get through college. But part of our role as educators is to prepare students to be successful after they leave college and enter or continue through the workforce. Can you talk a bit about how this is an equity issue? And can you highlight for us what you view as some of the critical areas that colleges could improve upon, or where promising practices are already occurring in service of this goal?
Oh, this is, okay. I was hoping the first question would be a softball, but I guess let's just get right into it. So how is this an equity issue? This is, I feel like I should have numbers, but I don't. So bear with me for a minute here. Preparing students for success after they leave college is complicated because, and I don't want to get into what is the value of college? Is it to help people earn technical skills or is it to learn how to learn? I think both of those are important. And the thing to remember is that students will want different things from different experience, at different times, and whatever experience they pursue is the one that we should embrace. Okay, so I'll put that out there. When they leave college, it is very difficult for people to access the job market. This is a very well-studied and well-known issue. And the equity issue here is that there are a number of factors that play into how people get a job. So the missing workers report focused on when companies have policies, for example, like requiring a college degree, or when they screen out applicants with very long gaps in their employment, when they screen out formerly incarcerated or veterans actually are a very big category that are often screened out. This is an issue that needs to be dealt with systematically by working with employers, and that should happen at the same time, though, as educators, we start to help students to be better communicators of what they know. So a lot of times, even if they have a college degree, is it that they walk around and say, look, here's my diploma, please give me a job? It is that because the data shows that people with the diploma do actually get better jobs. But why is it that, Black and Latino, Latinx, women are underrepresented in very high wage occupations? Why is it that there are fewer women in STEM occupations? I think there are they're very complicated sort of social, how to get a job implications with their network. And I think that I'm going to go back to helping your students communicate that they got an A in math is important, but like all of the things that they can do as a result of that is even more important. I think I read in one of the case studies that in the statistics course, you are able to practice how to act, or in the business course, you're actually able to practice real world applications. So how to fill a tax return form out. These are really important skills for students to be able to say that they know how to do, so that when they get an opportunity to say these things, they can compete on equal ground. I think that colleges can be better at describing the credentials they offer, and even maybe think about offering sub-degree credentials, because we really do know that students are not always finishing all in one go. And the gaps are very harmful. But what if, like, instead of stopping out after 2 years and then picking out and saying like, okay, well, I just took a few courses, but I don't have a degree. What if they could say, I have a certificate in like some programming language or some skill, and they could present that as, here is accumulation of the things that I do know, not the things that I'm missing. So I think that sub-degree credential is a really important tool that colleges can start to think about, that can provide a lot of opportunity for people.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to ask a follow-up question. There's a lot of interest in the badging credentials and the LER. And what, how do you see colleges and universities organizing themselves to support those efforts? I just wondering what if you have an example of a few colleges who have taken that on and scaled that practice, so that we can learn from that.
I'm like, okay, so I will give you a couple of examples that I think are sort of promising practices to watch. I wouldn't say like anyone's necessarily hit that out of the park yet. But one example is Western Governors University has been working on something in the state of Indiana called the Indiana Achievement Wallets. And that is something that they have worked with some institutions in Indiana to start mapping out the skills that students have achieved, and to show them on a dashboard what those skills are and what skills they could possibly pursue to get like to a certain sort of occupational goal. And they have these achievements with them on a wallet. This is in pilot, so it's not very widespread at the moment, but that is an example of one sort of initiative. Another initiative, for example, is some of the statewide initiatives in the state of Hawaii, for example, with the University of Hawaii system and the Hawaii community colleges. They have worked to map the credentials that they earn and put them in the credential finder that Credential Engine has. So Credential Engine stewards a standard called the Credential Transparency Description Language that creates a standard format for how to describe what does a credential mean, what is in it, and what can a student do because of it. And by mapping all of the credentials and putting them into the credential registry sort of network, I think they are working to help students understand the pathways that are available to them educationally, and then simultaneously working in a larger community that includes employers to be able to look at those credentials and say, like, actually, these are the skills that I would like to hire in my workforce rather than the degrees that I'm pursuing for my staff.
Thank you. Thank you. It's just such a great, promising practice. So I want to make sure folks know where to look if they're interested in pursuing that. So Megan will ask the next question.
Yep, and a little bit of follow-up on that, because it's generating some ideas and chat as you're discussing these. Kind of been discussing what the colleges can do, to help better prepare and also kind of align with what the workforce actually wants. We have some questions coming in about what is the extent to which employers are actually paying attention to and valuing these credentials and badges, as well as in sites like LinkedIn and other professional development networking sites. How much are we actually seeing those integrating and valuing those and being used within the employment space as well?
So I will say two things. I will say that I think employers are beginning to acknowledge them. but that they are not doing it enough. So we have examples very recently of very, very large employers like IBM and Google saying very bold statements like, if you would like to work at our company, you only have to demonstrate technical skills. We will not look for a degree anymore. And I think those are very important market signals because of the position that those types of companies have in the space. Similarly, like Target and all of those companies. And so for certain industry sectors, it's actually easier to do that. And in those industries, you are starting to see the market be more accepting of those practices. I think there are a number of areas where it's a little bit more difficult. The first is not every company in the US is a very large company like IBM or Google or Twitter. And in fact, I think something in upwards of 60% of new job creation is by small enterprises, which are under 500 people, and including a lot of companies where low-income workers, women, and participate in the economy through are companies that have maybe no HR person and that are 50 or smaller. And so for those kinds of companies, their HR and talent engagement practices are very different. And changing the culture of how they hire is complicated. And that's something that I actually am spending some time doing some research on. And if you have thoughts, definitely send them my way. But I think that there is a lot of promising work through state initiatives, through national initiatives like that are being led by the Chamber of Commerce Foundation through the T3 Innovation Network that are really trying to connect employers to this. There's a network also where I guess it's called the HR Open Standards, where people are starting to think about like, well, how can HR systems better accept these and understand how to ingest them? So this is definitely an ongoing issue that everyone should, I guess, in talking with their employer partners, force them to think about.
Thanks so much. We've talked a little bit, I know I mentioned it at the start as well, when I was speaking about this work taking place during the COVID crisis, and we're still well within it, unfortunately. Yes. But we have been seeing good things coming out of this situation in that, for instance, we're hearing from faculty, hey, I learned how to do really cool new stuff in the classroom, and I'm going to keep doing that, right? You were asking folks what were some of the new skills that they were doing, both fun and, for function in terms of employment. A lot of these things are enriching us as educators. So I'm curious, given your perspective and just kind of your background in the higher ed space, what do you see in terms of like what have been some of the positive transitions that have come in the education space because of the pandemic?
I hesitate to say this, but I have really appreciated that we have forced everyone to use technology because for the longest time, there has been a lot of resistance, especially with like certain types of organizations and institutions to say that teaching online is okay. Now, I think that teaching online versus like I've recorded my course on my PowerPoint and I'm playing it on Zoom are two very different things that I think we all know. But the actual forcing of people to confront the issue of how to touch a device, how to make it access the internet, and how to like connect with people through something like Zoom, I think has been really beneficial. And I think that the reason that I say that it's mixed is because I don't often like Zoom too, because I feel like there are times when we just watch too much Zoom TV. But I think that hopefully, or I'm very optimistic that in engaging one time with one kind of technology, that people will not be as scared to try other new things. And being forced to do that, I think maybe is one of the positive benefits in the digital transformation category.
Absolutely. We've definitely been hearing some similar comments from the institutions and the communities that we've been working with, and even just highlighting that, the pandemic has really exacerbated existing inequities, made them a lot more apparent, but really put us on notice to these are structural issues that we need to address in the classroom and on our campuses. And in highlighting that, really highlighted, here's some things that we could be doing and should have been doing already, and let's commit to doing that moving forward.
And I think you're right. Like to your point, I think about shining light. I think one of the things that I've been really encouraged by is, way back when we used to work on like the Connect All Schools, like 96% of schools should have broadband. Like what is the definition of broadband? How do people get E-rate? But now it was like, really, we need to think about like connectivity as an equity issue, and like the double focus on that within the infrastructure bills, and in a lot of the conversations that state like lawmakers are having about their education programming is like, I think, really good, because if we are going digital, and if the future has more devices than less, we really need to confront this issue of people don't have device access, they don't have broadband access, and actually I think related to that, like digital literacy amongst adult learners is especially low, and that we need to address that as also an equity issue.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the badging process just because I'm excited about it, and the quite many questions are. I know you weren't trying to focus the whole talk on that, but I just think that it would take a really intentional mapping of skills, which is an important question for faculty to ask themselves. What, in this course, what skills am I building as we create a pathway, as we create pathways for student success? So the question is, starting the badging process on campus may require a lot of upfront resources, time, and money. What is some advice you have for faculty to make the case to leadership that it's worth the investment? Are there specific disciplines or areas that you've seen that we should focus on in undergrad gateway courses?
Okay, this is a conversation that is both about the investment in the technology as well as the investment in everything else, which is almost just as hard. And I'll say very quickly about the technology. There are so many badge issuing platforms that you can select from that badge issuing is almost a non-issue. And I'm not going to say it's a non-issue, it's almost a non-issue. So you can pick a Badger or a Credly or an Accredible, or and a lot of these have integrations directly with your LMS. So I know that like Badger, you can issue a Badger badge actually directly from Microsoft Teams if you want to. So, the actual act of like giving someone a digital asset is not the hard part. The hard part is making sure that that digital asset has meaning, which is, to your point, like describing what your course is and what students know as a result, which you have a great start because every course has a set of learning outcomes. So thinking about the learning outcomes, the set of resources that individuals need to access in order to achieve them, and like maybe thinking about some of the assignments that you give them as a result of that, like putting them all together and creating a credential that way, that's the hard work. Luckily, though, a lot of people have sort of started, so no one is going first on this. We are very comfortable in the like, we are now second in line bubble, which is great because a lot of people that have worked on this first have created frameworks that they have made available publicly. And so I think that to the extent that we like to think all of our courses are special, they're very, very special. But actually, you can also copy the way that the skills and competencies were described in very similar courses that are previously offered. So take that as a, if I'm mapping my skills and competencies, someone else has maybe already done this. So that's the second part. Now, making the case. This is actually where it's very tricky because I have said a lot of things about LERs and digital credentials as if, and JFF as an organization and many other organizations have advocated for policies that focus on skills-based. And do we really know if skills-based practices lead to better economic outcomes and more mobility? The empirical evidence is pretty thin, but what we do know is that short-term credentials do help. And that any credential that like a package, not just of a course, can actually help a student communicate their value in the marketplace. And so thinking about like, well, do you want to issue a soft skill and how would you describe that? A lot of organizations, for example, that framework that the California Community College put out for their series of 8 soft skill badges, just steal that and start issuing those. And because that's not unique to California, the Maine state systems use it. The University of Vermont uses it, and a number of other schools use that exact same framework. So you can also just adopt that framework. But then start thinking about how would you package them together for a larger credential. And people have done that. The IT industry or the healthcare ones are especially, I think, they have progressed a little bit further. I was going to say that they are especially advanced, but I think advanced is optimistic. because they've started to think like, well, a software engineer knows how to code in these 5 languages, and they've created like ways for you to demonstrate that easily. So, lean into the work that has already been done so that you don't have to start from scratch.
Thank you. That's great advice. Megan, do you want to take the next one?
Yes, something that you had mentioned relates a lot to the work that we are doing, and something that we're trying to move forward as well is, one of the reasons that we work within the space of teaching and learning and offering this sort of development area is many of us as educators, like, you get a master's degree, you get a PhD, and it's like, hey, you can go teach this now, right? Without any actual training of how to teach and what all of the learning science and learning theories behind that, what are the tools? And most folks, they teach what they know and what worked for them, and they don't even necessarily have an awareness of what some of those options are out there that they can, pursue as well. So we like to, be able to share information and share knowledge, but also about practices that are, and you mentioned this, evidence-based, right? So in terms of having policies and practices and choices in the classroom and on campuses that are rooted in, actual evidence and data. But that has been one of the challenges, that we've certainly faced in terms of sometimes it's not documented. So we often look to exemplar models and institutions that are doing a really good or really cool job at some of the things that we're interested in. This is maybe not a softball question, but I'll throw it at you anyway, is are there any particular institutions or faculty or folks that you've worked with in the space at community colleges or universities, that are just doing something really, really cool that you would like to highlight and share kind of within this space of, teaching and learning and using technologies in support of, creating more equitable outcomes for students? Folks that we could look to. You mentioned Western Governors earlier, for instance. Are there some others that we might want to check out and kind of dock as the places that we should be looking at?
I feel like this is a quiz to see if I know what the 13 institutions are that are part of this network. Is that right?
No, you can go outside of those 13. This is based on your experiences and your background. We'd love to hear more because we're documenting the stuff that's going on our own campuses. But we are excited if you're excited about what we're doing.
I am excited about what you're doing. And I would encourage you as well to look at this Community College Success Network that JFF is running. I feel like a lot of the promising practices that I would suggest are from that. And this is really like, I can't remember who they are because I don't know why. I'm just totally blanking right now. But that is one network also that I think you all are very well connected with, that you should continue to connect with. And I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm very suddenly very blank right now.
No worries at all. No worries at all. Well, when you think about the next 5 years, in terms of, I know you have a more of a front row seat and the legislation that's coming down and how it's going to affect our colleges and the support for faculty. What are you most excited about when you think about what's on the horizon?
I think that the thing that I'm most excited about is that we are going to be forced to work together in community more. I think that in the past, it was, I remember when like the TACT program first happened, it was like so complicated to figure out how the departments of labor and education were going to coordinate their priorities and work together. And this is like the two sort of big authorizing groups, right? As if like there's a division between like a student when they leave a college and they belong to the Department of Education's purview, and then they become part of the workforce system and need training, and now the Department of Labor can care about them. But I think it's like more and more the acknowledgement in across all of these programs that across federal agencies, across the state, across an institution with the different kinds of roles that people play, that actually we all need to be working together because I think there is a student-centeredness now to the conversation that didn't exist always in the past. And so all of this collaboration really is an acknowledgement that there are people that interact multiple times with multiple jurisdictions, and across all of those, we need to make their experience easier. And I think there's like related to that is, hey, are we systematically excluding people from opportunity because of the way that we have set up our bureaucracies? And I think that the answer is absolutely yes. But now that we have seen it, seen the consequences, I think we're ready to start thinking about how to take steps to make that, to mitigate the damage there and to make it easier moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. I learned a little bit about the history of the Department of Ed and how those two entities were expected, you know, there was proposals for those, the Department of Ed and were to be joined. And I think there are, you know, real ramifications for that decision to separate those two. And I'm glad that there's a legislation that's going to help bridge that gap, because for our students, they experience it all as life and deserve the support and not the barriers that disconnect creates.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you again so much for that, Sharon. And, you know, just really highlights, I always enjoy having these conversations within the higher ed space with folks who've been at a variety of different organizations and experienced it in the whole ecosystem in different ways, because it really just highlights, you know, the systemic nature of things. And, you know, oftentimes when we're working with institutions and faculty and the communities there, you know, we're really kind of looking at the microcosm, if you will, of that institution and sometimes that class. And one of the strategies that we definitely highlight is, you know, this is a community effort. This is a whole systemic thing on your campus, but it's also touching all of these other things that are going on outside of your academic institution before students get in the door, how they navigate through it, and then what happens once they get out, right? And, you know, just really highlights the importance of policy more broadly and how that's affecting, you know, what we're doing. And then thinking about how can universities and folks who are kind of on the ground teaching perhaps have an impact and a voice in shaping what those things are and improving those. So you got me thinking about ways we can strategize on that too. So I'll be following up as well. So I want to thank you again for your presentation and comments today, and then also to Jessica earlier for speaking with us today. We are ending just a little bit early for this, but we have a short break. So the concurrent sessions kick off at 1:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please go ahead and Ron had given some insights on the overview. There's also a video that should have been shown where to go. But you want to go ahead and check out the agenda tab, and then there you can access the concurrent sessions, click on your session, as well as the Zoom link and access that. So we are looking forward to hearing from our experts and exemplars from each of these institutions. So thanks for getting started with us today, folks, and we look forward to sharing and learning with you throughout the event.